in the Trump administration. You might have seen this meme floating around in the last few weeks featuring Donald Trump, UFC founder Dana White, and Elon Musk, with the caption reading, "We're looking at the new CEO, CMO, and CTO of America." And in the case of Elon Musk, it appears to be true that he will take on a sizable role in the government as head of government efficiency.
At the suggestion of Elon Musk, I will create a Government Efficiency Commission tasked with conducting a complete financial and performance audit of the entire federal government and making recommendations for drastic reforms. And Elon, because he's not very busy, has agreed to head that task force.
So does the interest section on the expenses side of the equation, and that only makes the deficit worse. And on top of that, there's the compounding factor at the moment. Like an IOU, investors give money to the US government and the US pays them back after a certain period of time. But the problem with this is these bonds require the government to pay interest. And as the debt pile grows and grows, so does the interest section on the expenses side of the equation. And that only makes the deficit worse. And on top of that, there's the compounding factor at the moment of higher interest rates. So because the government runs a deficit, when their debts come due, they actually can't pay them back. So what they do instead is they will take on new debt to help pay down the old one. But the problem with this is if you took on $1 million of debt at 1% interest and now you have to refinance at say 5% interest, that also starts to snowball the interest expense of the country. For the same outstanding debt, your interest expense is now higher thanks to the higher interest rates. And all of this is what Elon Musk has drawn attention to recently. This was him on Joe Rogan a few weeks back.
This whole idea of this government efficiency agency.
Yeah, I mean, the idea is pretty simple, is that like we've got this suffocating massive federal bureaucracy. Government spending is like bankrupting the country. Our interest payments on the national debt now exceed the Defense Department budget. The Defense Department budget is like $1 trillion a year. 23% of all government income taxes, tariffs, and everything is just going to pay interest right now. And that number is continually rising. So if we don't do something, the entire government budget will be paying interest. There won't be money for anything. No, there won't be money for Social Security. There won't be money for Medicare, nothing. That's where we're headed. It's like, hello, wake up. Wake up. So we have to cut government spending or we're just going to go bankrupt, just like a person would if that overspends.
Elon sees the deficit worsening over time. He sees the refinancing of government debt at higher interest rates ballooning the interest expense of the country, and he wants to change that. But the first step in stopping the snowballing pile of debt is to put the US in a position where, after all is said and done in a given year, it doesn't need to take on more debt. And that means America needs to either increase its income or reduce its expenses to eliminate the deficit and return to a budget surplus. And in Elon's planned
government efficiency, you know, what that's going to do is really just take a look at all the federal expenditures and say if something is not, if you're not getting great value for money for your hard-earned tax dollars, cancel it. I would like to say it's a hard job, but actually it's not because there's so much waste. So I actually think this is a fairly easy job. Although it will get a lot of opposition naturally from the entrenched interests that get the money and do nothing, nothing good with it. They'll be grumpy about it. But the American people will be very happy that their tax dollars are being spent in a much more sensible way. Spending money on all these these government agencies, and I actually asked the AI how many government agencies are there. And the government isn't even sure how many government agencies there are. So it's like somewhere around 450, depending on what you call an agency, at the federal level. So that's almost twice as many agencies as years that America has existed. So we're creating agencies at roughly 2 agencies a year.
Wow.
Yes, this is crazy. So we've got this vast, suffocating federal bureaucracy that just gets bigger every year, and eventually you get to the point where everything is illegal. You can't get anything done. SpaceX Starship was sitting on the pad. The rocket, this giant rocket. We could build the rocket faster than they could process the paperwork to approve the launch. So we're sitting there for 2 months. If you're dealing with one agency, that's one thing. But if you've got to deal with 5 agencies, and the agencies will have to meet with each other, now you've got 25 different meeting configurations that have to take place. You get just hardening of the arteries. You just can't make progress. This is why we can't build high-speed rail in America. It's basically illegal. We need to take a look at all federal expenditures and say, is this really benefiting the American people or is it not? And if it is, well, are we spending it wisely? Well, usually the answer is no. So then we should spend less money and spend it efficiently. But there's got to be a clear benefit to the American people, or we shouldn't be spending money. And I think we also want to have extreme transparency. So like no shady backroom deals or whatever. Everything done in the open, total exposure. Like you can see the mistakes that are made, the good things that are done. You can comment on it. You can, raise concerns. We want a transparent, open government. And, because there will be mistakes that are made. With transparency comes trust, and then you can see, oh, okay, we made a mistake, we'll fix that, we'll do that, and that's the best way to restore trust in government. Not that you should trust government, you shouldn't trust government, but you can trust it slightly more if there's at least transparency.